Dr. Amanda Cole was drinking her morning coffee when the sky changed color. She stood at her office window on the 10th floor of the Phoenix Research Center, watching the sunrise paint the desert mountains gold. Then everything went purple. The change happened fast. One moment the sky was clear blue, the next it looked like someone had poured grape juice across the heavens. Amanda dropped her coffee mug. The hot liquid splashed across her white lab coat, but she didn't notice. She was too busy staring at the 3 massive ships floating above the city. They were unlike anything she had ever seen. Each ship was the size of a football stadium, black as coal and covered in strange lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. They made no sound as they hung in the air, defying everything Amanda knew about physics. "What the hell?" she whispered. Her phone buzzed. It was Ryan, her husband. He worked as an engineer at the water treatment plant on the other side of town. "Amanda, are you seeing this?" His voice was tight with fear. "I'm seeing it," she said. "What do you think they are?" "I don't know, but Katie called from school. She's scared. They're telling all the kids to stay inside." Katie was their 16-year-old daughter. Amanda's heart started beating faster. "Is she okay?" "She's okay. But Amanda, these things are huge. They're covering the whole city." Amanda looked up. Ryan was right. The 3 ships had spread out, forming a triangle over Phoenix. Purple energy beams connected them, creating a dome of light that stretched from horizon to horizon. The dome was getting brighter. "Ryan, I think we need to get out of here. I'm already in the truck. I'm coming to get you." But Ryan never made it to Amanda's building. 20 minutes later, the energy dome began to pulse. Amanda watched from her window as the purple light got brighter and brighter. Then something impossible happened. The city started to disappear. It began at the edges. Buildings, cars, trees, people, everything just faded away like someone was erasing them with a giant eraser. The effect moved inward, getting closer to the center of the city where Amanda stood. Her phone rang again. This time it was Captain Jake Morrison from the Earth Defense Force. Amanda knew Jake from her work with the government. She studied alien life forms, or what people thought might be alien life forms. Until today, she had never found any real proof that aliens existed. "Dr. Cole, we're tracking what's happening in Phoenix from orbit," Jake said. His voice was calm, but Amanda could hear the worry underneath. "We're seeing 3 large craft over your position. Can you tell me what you're observing?" "They're taking the city," Amanda said. "They're making it disappear." "What do you mean disappear?" "I mean it's vanishing, like it's being erased." Amanda watched as the hospital 3 blocks away faded into nothing. "Jake, I think they're taking everything, buildings, people, everything." The line went quiet for a moment. Then Jake spoke again. "Dr. Cole, we're seeing massive energy readings from those ships. Our best guess is some kind of transport technology. We think they're moving your city somewhere else." "Moving it where?" "We don't know. The erasure effect was only 2 blocks away now." Amanda could see people running in the streets below, but they had nowhere to go. The dome covered the entire city. There was no way out. "Jake, I need you to tell Ryan and Katie that I love them," Amanda said. "You'll tell them yourself when we get you out of there." "No," Amanda said quietly. "I don't think I will." The building across the street faded away. Amanda could see right through to where it used to be. In its place was empty desert, as if the city had never existed at all. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. "I love you. Take care of Katie." Then her building started to fade. Amanda felt a strange, tingling sensation, like tiny electric shocks, running through her body. The walls around her became transparent. She could see through the floor to the parking garage below, where cars were disappearing one by one. The tingling got stronger. Amanda felt dizzy. The world around her became blurry, like she was looking through water. She tried to call out, but no sound came from her throat. Then everything went black. When Amanda woke up, she was lying on a metal floor in a room with no windows. The walls were smooth and gray, made of some material she didn't recognize. The Air smelled strange, metallic and sharp like the smell after lightning strikes. She sat up slowly. Her head hurt, and her stomach felt sick. Around her she could see other people waking up. She recognized some of them. Her neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, the barista from the coffee shop downstairs, a police officer she had seen around the building. "Where are we?" Mrs. Peterson asked. She was an old woman who lived alone with 3 cats. "I don't know," Amanda said. A door in the wall slid open with a soft hiss. 3 figures walked in. They looked almost human, but not quite. They were tall and thin, with pale gray skin and large black eyes. They wore dark uniforms covered in symbols Amanda didn't understand. One of them stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once, like speakers hidden in the walls. "You have been selected for harvest," it said. "Your species will serve the Zephyrian Empire. Resistance will result in termination." Amanda stood up on shaky legs. As a scientist, she had always wondered what she would do if she ever met aliens. She had imagined asking them questions about their homeworld, their technology, their culture. Instead, she found herself asking, "What did you do with our city?" "Phoenix has been relocated to Processing Station 7, the alien said. "Your people will be sorted and assigned work duties. Those who prove useful will live. Those who do not will be recycled." "You can't just take people," Amanda said. "We're not animals." The alien tilted its head. "You are a primitive species. You exist to serve more advanced civilizations. This is the natural order." Amanda felt anger building in her chest. These creatures had destroyed her life, taken her family, stolen her entire city. They talked about humans like they were cattle. "What about our families?" she asked. "Family units will be maintained when practical," the alien said. "Individual attachment is inefficient, but some bonding serves to keep livestock calm." Livestock. That's what they thought humans were. The alien turned to leave, but Amanda called after it. "What's your name?" It paused. "I am Warlord Krexthon. You will learn to serve, or you will cease to exist." After the aliens left, Amanda sat back down on the cold metal floor. Around her, people were crying, talking, trying to make sense of what had happened. But Amanda wasn't crying. She was thinking. She was a scientist. She solved problems for a living. And right now, humanity had a very big problem. These Zephyrians thought they could just take whatever they wanted. They thought humans were weak and primitive. Amanda touched the wedding ring on her finger. Somewhere in this alien place, Ryan and Katie were probably in rooms just like this one. They were scared and alone, just like everyone else from Phoenix. But they were alive. That meant there was still hope. Amanda Cole had spent her whole career studying life forms. Now she had a new species to study. And unlike her previous work, this research was personal. She was going to learn everything she could about these Zephyrians, and then she was going to find a way to make them pay for what they had done. 6 months after Phoenix disappeared, the world had changed completely. General Patricia Stone stood in a command center buried 3 miles under the Rocky Mountains. The walls were lined with screens showing news from around the globe. None of it was good. "Report," Patricia said to the young officer at the communications desk. "Ma'am, we've lost contact with the Australian base. Same pattern as the others. Everything went quiet 3 days ago." Patricia nodded grimly. The Zephyrians were hunting down human military installations one by one. They seemed to know exactly where to look. Somehow they could track human technology. "What about Dr. Martinez's team?" Patricia asked. "Still working in Lab 7, ma'am. She says she's close to a breakthrough." Patricia hoped so. Dr. Elena Martinez was their best hope for understanding alien technology. She had been studying the pieces of Zephyrian equipment left behind after the Phoenix harvest. Small fragments, but enough to learn from. Patricia walked through the underground base. It was like a small city buried in rock. Thousands of people lived here now. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and civilians who had escaped the alien raids. They all had the same look in their eyes, fear mixed with determination. The base had been built during the Cold War to survive nuclear attacks. Now it served a different purpose. It was humanity's last command center, hidden from alien sensors, by miles of solid granite. Patricia found Dr. Martinez in her lab, bent over a workbench covered in strange metal fragments. Elena was a small woman with graying hair and thick glasses. Before the invasion, she had been NASA's leading expert on exotic materials. Now she was trying to reverse engineer alien weapons. "Any progress?" Patricia asked. Elena looked up, rubbing her tired eyes. "I think I understand how their energy weapons work. They use some kind of quantum field manipulation. Very advanced, but not impossible to counter. Can we build weapons that work against them?" "Maybe. But Patricia, I found something else. Something more important." Elena picked up a small device that looked like a metallic flower. "This is a piece of their communication system. I've been monitoring alien transmissions through it." Patricia felt her heart rate increase. "What are you hearing?" "They're not just taking humans from Earth. They've been doing this for thousands of years, to dozens of different species. We're just the latest." Elena activated a small screen. It showed star maps with red markers scattered across them. Each red dot is a world they've harvested. They call it livestock acquisition. "Patricia, they have an entire empire built on slavery." Patricia stared at the screen. The red dots covered a huge area of space. "How many people are we talking about?" "Billions. Maybe trillions. They've been building this empire for millennia." The information was overwhelming. Patricia had been thinking about this as a war between Earth and the aliens. But it was bigger than that. Much bigger. Far away on a mining world called Korvax Prime, Ryan Foster was learning the same terrible truth. He stood in a massive underground cavern, watching thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds dig precious metals from the rock walls. Most he didn't recognize, but some looked almost human. Ryan had been assigned to the engineering section. The Zephyrians needed someone to maintain their mining equipment, and his background made him useful. It was the only reason he was still alive. Next to him, his daughter Katie was learning to operate alien machinery. She had always been good with computers, but alien technology was different. Instead of keyboards and screens, it responded to thoughts and emotions. "Dad, I figured out how to make it work," Katie whispered. She was touching a control panel that looked like living crystal. "You don't push buttons. You think at it." "Be careful," Ryan said quietly. "Don't let them know you can do that." Katie nodded. She had gotten taller in the past 6 months, but she still looked like a child. Ryan worried about her every day. This was no place for a 16-year-old girl. A Zephyrian guard walked past them. It carried a weapon that could turn a person into dust with one shot. Ryan and Katie kept working, pretending not to notice. But Katie was noticing more than her father knew. Every day she spent hours connected to alien machines, and every day she learned something new. The Zephyrians built their technology around rigid patterns. Everything had to be organized, predictable, and controlled. Human minds were different. Human thoughts jumped around, made unexpected connections, and changed direction without warning. To the aliens, human thinking seemed chaotic and random. But Katie was starting to realize that this chaos might be a strength, not a weakness. Late at night, in the sleeping quarters, Ryan met with other humans in secret. They had formed a resistance group, passing information and planning for escape. But escape to where? They were on an alien world, millions of miles from Earth. "We need weapons," said Ben Collins, a former NASA engineer. "I've been studying their security systems. They're not as advanced as they look." "What do you mean?" asked Lisa Park, a doctor from Phoenix. "Their whole society is based on hierarchy and order. Everyone has a specific role, and they never deviate from it. That makes them predictable." Ryan thought about what Katie had told him about the alien machines. "My daughter says their technology responds to mental patterns. What if we could learn to confuse it?" "Confuse it how? I don't know yet. But Katie seems to have a natural ability to interface with their systems. Maybe other humans do too." Back on Earth, Dr. Martinez was discovering the same thing. She had managed to activate a small piece of Zephyrian technology using her own brainwaves. The device had responded to her thoughts, but not in the way it was designed to. "General Stone, you need to see this," Elena called out. Patricia hurried over to the workbench. Elena was holding the metallic flower device, and it was glowing with soft blue light. "I connected it to my brain activity monitor," Elena explained. "When I think about specific things, it responds. But here's the interesting part. It's not responding the way it should." "What do you mean?" "This device is meant to receive orders and follow them exactly. But when I think at it, it does something different. It's like my human thoughts are corrupting its programming." Elena showed Patricia a series of readouts on her computer screen. "Look at this. When I think about my childhood, the device tries to process the memory, but gets confused. Human memories are too chaotic for it to understand. When I think about multiple things at once, it starts to malfunction." Patricia stared at the data. "You're saying human thoughts can break their technology?" "I'm saying human thoughts are incompatible with their technology. Their systems are designed for minds that think in straight lines. Our minds think in circles, spirals, and zigzags. This was the breakthrough they had been looking for." Patricia immediately called a meeting of the base's senior staff. Scientists, military officers, and engineers gathered in the main conference room. "Dr. Martinez believes she's found a weakness in alien technology," Patricia announced. "Elena, explain what you've discovered." Elena stood up and activated a holographic display. It showed brain scan images side by side. Human brains versus what she theorized Zephyrian brains looked like. "Human neural patterns are fundamentally chaotic," she said. "We can think about multiple things simultaneously, change topics randomly, and make connections that seem illogical. Alien minds appear to be much more organized and linear." "How does this help us?" asked Colonel Murphy, the base's military commander. "Their technology is designed around their way of thinking. If we can learn to broadcast human thought patterns, we might be able to disrupt their systems." A young communications officer raised her hand. "Ma'am, what about the people they've taken? Could this help them too?" Patricia nodded. "That's exactly what I'm thinking. If we can develop this into a weapon, we could help our people fight back from the inside." Over the next several weeks, Elena's team worked around the clock to develop what they called neural disruptors. The devices were designed to amplify and broadcast human brainwaves, turning human thoughts into weapons against alien technology. Meanwhile, on Korvax Prime, Katie Foster was making her own discoveries. She had learned to not just operate alien machines, but to confuse them. When she touched the crystal control panels, she would think about random things, her favorite song, what she had for breakfast, a funny joke she remembered. The machines would flicker and sometimes shut down completely. She started teaching other humans the technique during their work shifts. Soon, mining equipment was breaking down all across the facility. The Zephyrian supervisors couldn't understand what was happening. "The livestock is becoming defective," one guard reported to its supervisor. "Productivity has decreased by 30%. But the aliens didn't realize what was really happening. The humans weren't becoming defective, they were becoming dangerous." One night, Ryan found Katie practicing her technique on a communication device. She had managed to tap into the alien information network. "Dad, I can hear their messages," she whispered. "They're planning something big. They want to go back to Earth and take more cities." Ryan felt cold fear in his stomach. "When?" "Soon. Maybe a few months. But Dad, there's something else. I think I can send a message through their system. I think I can contact Earth." Ryan looked at his daughter with new understanding. She wasn't just surviving in this alien prison. She was becoming something new. Dr. Elena Martinez stood in what used to be impossible, a Zephyrian ruin site on Mars. 3 weeks ago, satellites had detected strange structures buried under the red planet's south pole. Now Elena was walking through corridors that had been hidden for thousands of years. "This doesn't make sense," she said to her team. "The Zephyrians are the ones with the Empire. Why would their ruins be here?" Captain Lisa Wong, Elena's military escort, checked her radiation detector. Maybe they visited Mars before they found Earth? No, Elena said, studying the walls. These aren't Zephyrian structures, they're older, much older. She ran her hand over symbols carved into the metal walls. These symbols are different from what we've seen on their ships. Elena's team had discovered the site by accident. While monitoring Zephyrian communications, they had detected a weak signal coming from Mars. When they investigated, they found a massive complex buried under centuries of dust and ice. The ruins told a story that changed everything Elena thought she knew about the aliens. In the main chamber, they found walls covered in pictures and symbols. Elena studied them with growing amazement. The pictures showed the history of an ancient civilization, one that had been conquered by the Zephyrians long ago. Look at this. Elena called her team over to a large wall carving. This shows ships attacking a planet, but the ships look like Zephyrian vessels. So the Zephyrians conquered this race? Lisa asked. Yes, but here's the interesting part. Elena pointed to another section of the wall. This shows what happened next. The conquered people didn't stay conquered. The pictures showed a rebellion. Small groups hiding in caves and underground bases. Secret weapons being built. Ships being sabotaged from within. And finally, victory. The ancient Zephyrian forces being driven away. They won, Elena whispered. This ancient race beat the Zephyrians. At the bottom of the wall, Elena found something that made her heart race. Symbols. That looked almost human. Not exactly human writing, but close enough that she could understand parts of it. The final message says, chaos defeats order. The mind that bends survives. The mind that breaks conquers. Elena spent 3 days studying the ruins. What she learned changed her understanding of the entire galactic situation. The Zephyrians weren't unbeatable conquerors. They were bullies who had been beaten before. More importantly, she learned how they had been beaten. While Elena was making discoveries on Mars, Katie Foster was making her own breakthrough on Korvax, Prime. She had been practicing with the alien communication system for weeks, learning to send messages through their network. But today she discovered she could do more than just send messages. She could listen to everything. Katie sat in her workstation, pretending to operate mining equipment while actually tapping into the Zephyrian command network. The information flowing through the system was incredible. She could hear conversations between alien commanders, read reports from across their empire, and access databases full of information. What she learned terrified her. Dad, she whispered to Ryan during their lunch break. They're getting ready to attack Earth again. But this time it's not just one city, they want to take the whole planet. Ryan nearly choked on his food ration. When? 3 months. They're gathering ships from all over their empire. They think Earth's military is too weak to stop them after what happened to Phoenix. Ryan looked around the eating area. Thousands of beings from dozens of different worlds sat at long metal tables, eating tasteless food and trying to survive another day of slavery. We have to warn Earth. I already tried, but their security is too strong for me to break through. I read their messages, but I can't send strong signals out. Katie paused. But Dad, I learned something else. Something important. What? Katie leaned closer. The Zephyrians aren't the first empire to rule this part of space. Before them, there were others. And before those, there were others. Each empire thinks they're the first, but they're not. What happened to the other empires? They were overthrown, always by the people they enslaved. Dad, slavery empires don't last forever, they all fall eventually. Ryan thought about this. How long do they usually last? From what I can tell, about 2,000 years. The Zephyrian Empire has been around for 1,800 years. So, they're due for a fall. Katie smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe we can help that along. Back on Earth, Elena was having similar thoughts. She had returned from Mars with a complete record of the ancient ruins. The story they told was clear. The Zephyrians could be beaten, but only if their enemies were willing to think differently. General Stone, I need to show you what we found. Elena said as she entered the command center. Patricia looked up from a tactical display showing Zephyrian ship movements around Earth. I hope it's good news, because I've got plenty of bad news. Elena activated her holographic display. Images from the Martian ruins filled the air above the conference table. This is the history of the Cathari civilization. They controlled this region of space before the Zephyrians. What happened to them? The same thing that happened to dozens of other civilizations. The Zephyrians enslaved them. Elena showed images of the conquest. But here's the important part. The Cathari eventually won their freedom. Elena explained what she had learned from the ruins. The Cathari had been a highly organized, peaceful civilization. When the Zephyrians attacked, they tried to fight using traditional military tactics. They lost completely, but some Cathari survived in hiding. Over the course of generations, these survivors changed their approach. Instead of fighting the Zephyrians directly, they learned to think like them. They infiltrated Zephyrian society, became trusted slaves, and slowly worked their way into positions where they could sabotage the empire from within. The key was unpredictability, Elena explained. The Zephyrians depend on order and hierarchy. When the Cathari started acting in ways the aliens couldn't predict or understand, the whole system began to break down. Patricia studied the ancient images. How long did it take? 300 years. But General, they had to learn how to be unpredictable. We humans are naturally unpredictable. We might be able to do this much faster. Elena showed Patricia the most important discovery from the ruins, a device that looked similar to the neural disruptors her team had been developing. The Cathari had built machines that could amplify chaotic thought patterns and broadcast them as weapons. This proves our approach is correct, Elena said. Human minds are naturally chaotic. We just need to learn how to weaponize that chaos. Over the next month, Elena's team worked to improve their neural disruptor technology. They studied the ancient Cathari designs and combined them with human engineering. The results were better than they had hoped. The new neural amplifiers could take human thoughts and broadcast them as disruptive signals that could shut down Zephyrian technology from miles away. More importantly, they could be built small enough for individuals to carry and use. Meanwhile, Katie Foster was having her own breakthrough on Korvax Prime. She had discovered that the more humans worked together to confuse alien systems, the more effective they became. When dozens of humans focused their chaotic thoughts on the same target, they could completely overwhelm Zephyrian technology. She began organizing secret training sessions. Late at night, when the guards thought the slaves were sleeping, Katie would gather groups of humans and teach them how to focus their mental chaos. Don't try to think logically, she would tell them. Think about everything at once. Think about home, think about your favorite song, think about what you want for breakfast tomorrow. Mix it all up in your head and then direct it at the alien machines. The results were incredible. Mining equipment began failing all across the facility. Communication systems went offline randomly. Even the lights would flicker when large groups of humans concentrated together. The Zephyrian supervisors were baffled. Their technology had never malfunctioned like this before. They ran diagnostic tests, replaced equipment, and increased maintenance schedules. Nothing worked. The livestock appears to be emitting some form of interference, reported one technician to his supervisor. Livestock cannot emit interference, the supervisor replied. They are primitive biological units, run more diagnostics. But the diagnostics showed nothing wrong with the equipment. The problem wasn't mechanical, it was mental. Amanda Cole, who had been assigned to a different processing station, was having similar experiences. She had been placed in a research facility where Zephyrian scientists studied captured alien species. As a human scientist, she was considered useful enough to keep alive. Working in the alien laboratory gave Amanda access to information about Zephyrian technology and biology. What she learned confirmed what Elena had discovered on Mars. The Zephyrians were not as advanced as they appeared. Their technology is powerful, but it's also fragile, Amanda reported during a secret meeting of human prisoners. It only works when everything follows specific patterns. If you introduce randomness into the system, it breaks down. Amanda had been studying the Zephyrians themselves, trying to understand how their minds worked. What she found was troubling, but also hopeful. They're not naturally creative, she explained. Their entire species has been bred for conformity and obedience. They can copy and improve existing technology, but they can't. Admiral Jake Morrison floated in the command center of the USS Defiance, watching through the view screen as Earth's defense fleet prepared for battle. It was the largest space fleet humanity had ever assembled, 300 ships of various sizes, armed with conventional weapons and Elena Martinez's neural disruptor technology. It looked pathetic compared to what was coming toward them. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting the Zephyrian fleet," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh. "Estimated arrival in 4 hours." Jake studied the tactical display. 2,000 Zephyrian ships were approaching Earth in perfect formation. Each ship was the size of a city, armed with weapons that could turn planets into dust. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked. 2,047, sir. Our computers estimate each one carries between 5 and 10,000 crew members. Jake did the math in his head. They were facing over 15 million trained alien warriors. Earth's entire defense fleet had maybe 50,000 people. "Admiral," Sarah said quietly, "the odds are not in our favor." "No, they're not," Jake agreed. "But we're not fighting this battle alone." At that moment on Mining World Corvax Prime, Katie Foster was preparing for her own battle. She stood in the center of the slave quarters, surrounded by 5,000 humans from Phoenix and other captured cities. "Remember what I taught you," she said to the gathered crowd. "Don't think like them. Think like humans. Think about everything at once. Think about home, family, love, fear, hope. Mix it all together and push it into their systems." Ryan Foster stood beside his daughter, proud and terrified at the same time. In the past months, Katie had grown from a scared teenager into a leader. The other prisoners looked to her for guidance and hope. "Dad, are you ready?" Katie asked. Ryan nodded. In his hand, he held a small device that Elena Martinez's team had managed to smuggle to the prison world. It was a neural amplifier, designed to boost human brainwaves and broadcast them as disruptive signals. Similar devices had been delivered to prisoner camps throughout Zephyrian space. The plan was simple but dangerous. All human prisoners would activate their amplifiers at the same time, flooding the alien empire's technology with chaotic human thoughts. If it worked, it would cause system failures across dozens of worlds. If it failed, the Zephyrians would probably kill every human in their empire. 5 minutes until the Earth battle begins, Katie announced. "When I give the signal, everyone focus on the same thought. We want to go home." On processing station, Gamma 7, Amanda Cole was making her own preparations. She had gathered 300 human scientists and engineers in the station's main laboratory. Around them, alien equipment hummed with power, controlling life support for the entire facility. "When we do this, we might die," Amanda told her team. "The aliens will probably shut off our air and heat as punishment." "Dr. Cole," said Frank Peterson, a chemical engineer from Phoenix, "we're already dying." "We're just dying slowly." Amanda nodded. Frank was right. Every day in alien captivity was a day stolen from their real lives. Even if they survived this rebellion, they would never truly be free unless the Zephyrian Empire was destroyed. "All right then," Amanda said. "Let's give these aliens a taste of human chaos." Back on Earth, Elena Martinez sat in her underground laboratory surrounded by banks of neural amplifier equipment. She was connected to the Global Resistance Network, ready to coordinate the attack on Zephyrian technology. "General Stone, all stations are reporting ready," Elena said into her headset. 3 miles above, Patricia Stone stood in a surface command bunker, watching through reinforced windows as the first Zephyrian ships appeared in Earth's sky. They looked like black stars against the blue atmosphere, growing larger by the minute. "All Earth defense ships, this is command," Patricia spoke into her radio. "Operation Chaos begins now." Admiral Morrison received the signal aboard the USS Defiance. Around him, his bridge crew activated their neural disruptor controls. Throughout the ship, 3,000 human crew members focused their minds on the same goal: confuse and destroy alien technology. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Zephyrian ships that had been approaching Earth in perfect formation suddenly began wandering off course. Their navigation systems, designed around predictable alien thought patterns, couldn't cope with the chaotic flood of human consciousness. "Sir, enemy ships are losing formation," reported Sarah Walsh. "They appear to be having technical difficulties." Technical difficulties was putting it mildly. Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, computers were crashing, weapon systems were shutting down, and life support was failing. The aliens had never experienced anything like the human mental assault. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, Warlord Krexthan stared at his command displays in confusion. Half his screens were showing error messages, while the other half displayed random data that made no sense. "Report," Krexthan demanded. "Sir, all systems are experiencing interference," replied his chief technician. "The source appears to be the human vessels." "Impossible. Humans do not possess advanced technology." "Sir, the interference is not technological. It appears to be biological." Krexthan didn't understand. In 1800 years of conquest, the Zephyrians had never encountered anything like this. Enemy species fought with weapons and ships, not with their minds. But humans were different, and that difference was tearing apart everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about warfare. On Korvax Prime, Katie Foster felt the moment when Earth's attack began. Somehow, across the vast distance of space, she could sense her mother and the other humans fighting for their planet. "Now!" she shouted. 5,000 human voices joined together in a mental scream of defiance. Their combined consciousness, amplified by the neural devices, crashed into the alien facility's computer systems like a hurricane hitting a house of cards. The mining station's lights went out. Life support systems failed. Security barriers dropped. And in the darkness, the slaves of a dozen different species realized they were free. "The doors are open," someone shouted in the darkness. "The guards' weapons aren't working," called another voice. Ryan Foster activated an emergency light and saw chaos erupting throughout the facility. Alien guards were stumbling around in the dark, their technology dead and useless. Meanwhile, prisoners were streaming out of their quarters heading for the surface. "Katie, we need to get to the communication center," Ryan said. "If we can contact Earth, we can coordinate with the fleet." Katie nodded. Even in the darkness, she could feel the alien technology around them. Most of it was dead, but some systems were still functioning. And she could touch those systems with her mind. "This way, Dad. I can sense where the communication array is." They ran through corridors filled with confused aliens and escaping prisoners. Katie led them unerringly toward the station's communication center, her mind acting like a compass that could sense working technology. Behind them, the other prisoners were organizing their own escape. Ben Collins, the former NASA engineer, had found the armory. Lisa Park, the doctor, was treating injured prisoners. Humans who had been broken and demoralized just hours before were now fighting back with desperate courage. Similar scenes were playing out on prisoner worlds throughout Zephyrian space. Everywhere humans were held captive, neural amplifiers were broadcasting chaos into alien systems. And everywhere those broadcasts reached, the rigid order of the Empire began to collapse. On Processing Station Gamma 7, Amanda Cole watched alien equipment explode in showers of sparks as human thoughts overwhelmed their control circuits. The station's artificial gravity failed, leaving everyone floating in zero-G chaos. "It's working," Frank Peterson shouted over the sound of failing machinery. "Their technology can't handle us," Amanda smiled grimly. She had spent her career studying alien life forms. Now she was using that knowledge to destroy the aliens who had enslaved her people. But the battle was far from over. Even as Zephyrian technology failed across their empire, the aliens themselves were adapting. They began shutting down affected systems and switching to manual control. On the flagship approaching Earth, Warlord Krexthan made a desperate decision. "Shut down all computer systems," he ordered. "We will fight using manual controls only." "Sir, that will reduce our combat effectiveness by 70%. "Better 70% effectiveness than 0%, Krexthan snarled. Order all ships to disconnect from the network and fight independently. Admiral Morrison watched from the USS Defiance as the Zephyrian ships stopped their chaotic wandering and began to reform their attack formation. The aliens were adapting to the neural assault. "Sir, they're regaining control," Sarah reported. "They've shut down their networked systems." Jake nodded. The neural disruptors had given them an advantage, but it wouldn't last forever. Order all ships to attack now while they're still confused. The human fleet launched everything they had. Missiles, energy weapons, and kinetic projectiles streaked across space toward the alien ships. Most of the weapons were primitive compared to Zephyrian technology, but the aliens were still reeling from the neural assault. Human weapons began finding their targets. Zephyrian ships that had seemed invincible just hours before began to explode in brilliant flashes of light. On Korvax Prime, Katie and Ryan reached the communication center. The room was in chaos. Alien. Katie Foster placed her hands on the alien communication console and took a deep breath. Around her, the captured communication center hummed with damaged equipment and floating debris. Her father Ryan stood beside her, ready to help focus their combined mental energy. "Dad, when I start the broadcast, it's going to hurt," Katie warned. "I'm going to push every human thought I can through their network. It might burn out my brain." "Then I'll help carry the load," Ryan said, placing his hand over hers on the control interface. On Earth, Elena Martinez watched her equipment readings as she linked every neural amplifier in the Resistance network to Katie's signal. General Stone stood behind her, along with dozens of technicians and scientists. "All stations report ready," Elena announced. "Katie, you have access to every human mind in the Resistance network." Katie closed her eyes and reached out with her consciousness. She could feel thousands of human minds connected to her through Elena's equipment, people in underground bunkers, hidden bases, and scattered resistance cells around the world. Each mind was different, chaotic, beautifully human. "Here we go," Katie whispered. She pushed her awareness into the Zephyrian communication system. For months she had been sneaking through their network like a ghost, careful not to attract attention. Now she abandoned all caution and dove straight into the heart of their empire. The Zephyrian Central Command Network was like a massive crystal structure, organized, predictable, and utterly rigid. Information flowed through it in perfect patterns. Following rules that had been programmed thousands of years ago, Katie began feeding human consciousness into that perfect system. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Human thoughts, random, emotional, creative, and chaotic, crashed into the alien network like a tsunami hitting a sandcastle. The rigid crystal structure of Zephyrian communications began to crack and shatter. On the flagship approaching Earth, Warlord Crexton watched in horror as his command displays began showing impossible data. His tactical screens displayed poetry instead of ship positions. His communication system was broadcasting music instead of military orders. His navigation computers were trying to plot courses to places that didn't exist. "What is happening?" he demanded. His chief technician was staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, the entire network has been compromised. Something is broadcasting random data through all our systems." Not random, Crexton realized with growing terror. Human. The chaotic broadcast wasn't limited to the ships attacking Earth. Katie's signal was traveling through quantum links that connected every part of the Zephyrian Empire. On mining worlds, processing stations, and command centers throughout their territory, alien technology was failing as human consciousness flooded their systems. But the effort was destroying Katie. The amount of mental energy required to broadcast through the entire network was burning through her mind like fire. Blood ran from her nose and ears as she pushed herself beyond human limits. "Katie!" Ryan shouted, seeing his daughter collapsing. He grabbed her shoulders, trying to support her weight. "Can't stop," Katie gasped. "Almost there." She could sense the core of the Zephyrian network now, a massive quantum computer located on their throne world of Zephnara. If she could reach it, she could cause permanent damage to their empire's ability to communicate and coordinate. On Earth, Elena watched her equipment readings spike into dangerous levels. "The neural amplifiers are overloading," she warned. If we don't shut down soon, we'll lose them all. Not yet, General Stone said grimly. Let her finish. Admiral Morrison, fighting the space battle above Earth, could see the effects of Katie's broadcast rippling through the Zephyrian fleet. Enemy ships were spinning out of control, their crews unable to coordinate attacks or even maintain formation. All ships attack now, Morrison ordered. Hit them while they're helpless. The human fleet poured everything they had into the confused alien ships. Vessels that had seemed invincible just hours before were now sitting ducks, their crews struggling to operate basic systems, but Morrison knew the advantage wouldn't last. Either Katie's broadcast would succeed completely, or the aliens would find a way to shut down their compromised networks and fight back. On Zephnara, the Zephyrian throne world, the Empire's central quantum computer was experiencing something it had never been designed to handle. For 1800 years, it had processed information in perfect, predictable patterns. Now it was trying to make sense of human dreams, memories, jokes, fears, and hopes all mixed together in a chaotic storm of consciousness. The computer began to have what could only be described as a nervous breakdown. It started making connections between unrelated data. It began generating creative solutions to problems that didn't exist. It started composing poetry about mathematical equations and writing love songs about stellar coordinates. In other words, it started thinking like a human. The change cascaded through every system connected to the central computer. Across the Zephyrian Empire, alien technology began behaving in ways that were creative, unpredictable, and completely uncontrollable. Weapons systems started painting pictures instead of firing. Navigation computers began plotting scenic routes instead of efficient ones. Life support systems started playing music instead of recycling air. The rigid order that had held the Empire together for nearly 2 millennia collapsed in a matter of minutes. Katie felt the moment when the central computer finally broke. Through her connection to the network, she experienced the artificial mind's transformation from organized logic to chaotic creativity. It was like watching a machine learn to dream. Got it, she whispered, and collapsed unconscious in her father's arms. The broadcast ended abruptly as Katie's overtaxed brain shut down to protect itself. But the damage was done. The Zephyrian Empire's communication network was permanently corrupted, infected with human consciousness that would continue spreading through their systems like a virus. On the flagship approaching Earth, Warlord Krexthan realized his empire was finished. His ships could no longer communicate with each other or coordinate attacks. His connection to the command network was severed. Even his personal equipment was malfunctioning, displaying children's drawings instead of tactical data. "Sir, orders?" his chief technician asked desperately. Krexthan looked at his broken displays, then at the advancing human ships. His massive fleet was still far larger than Earth's forces, but without coordination and communication, they were just individual vessels adrift in space. "Retreat," he said quietly. "Signal all ships to retreat." But even that simple order was impossible to carry out. The communication system that should have transmitted his retreat command instead broadcast a recipe for chocolate cake to the entire fleet. One by one, Zephyrian ships began withdrawing on their own as their individual commanders realized the situation was hopeless. Some fled toward the edge of the solar system. Others simply shut down their engines and waited to be captured. A few tried to continue fighting, but without tactical coordination, they were quickly overwhelmed by human forces. The battle for Earth was over. Humanity had won, but the victory extended far beyond Earth. Throughout the Zephyrian Empire, the collapse of the communication network triggered massive uprisings. Enslaved species that had been held in check by the Empire's overwhelming coordination suddenly found their oppressors confused and helpless. On Korvax Prime, Ryan Foster carried his unconscious daughter toward the surface as the alien facility erupted in celebration around them. Prisoners from dozens of worlds were streaming out of the underground mines, finally free after years or even decades of slavery. "Is she going to be okay?" asked Ben Collins, the NASA engineer who had helped organize the human resistance. "I think so," Ryan said, though he was worried. Katie had pushed herself to the very limits of human endurance. She just needs time to recover. Dr. Lisa Park, who had been treating injured prisoners, checked Katie's pulse and breathing. "She's stable," Lisa reported, "but she needs medical attention soon." "We'll get her home," Ryan promised. "We'll all get home." On Processing Station Gamma 7, Amanda Cole was organizing the evacuation of human prisoners. The station's alien crew had abandoned their posts when their equipment failed, leaving the humans to figure out how to operate the facility's systems. Fortunately, Amanda's scientific background and months of studying alien technology allowed her to keep the station's life support working. She and her team managed to contact other processing stations throughout the Empire, coordinating rescue efforts for human prisoners everywhere. 6 months later, Amanda stood in the rebuilt Phoenix City Hall, looking out at a crowd of people who had once been slaves on distant worlds. They had all come home, brought back to Earth by human ships that now patrolled the galaxy, alongside vessels from dozens of other liberated species. "Today marks the 6th-month anniversary of our return," Amanda said to the assembled crowd. 6 months since Katie Foster's broadcast freed not just humanity, but every enslaved species in what used to be the Zephyrian Empire. The crowd cheered. In the front row, Katie sat in a wheelchair next to her parents. The neural damage from her broadcast had left her partially paralyzed, but the doctor said she might recover with time and therapy. More importantly, her mind was intact and as sharp as ever. The Zephyrian.